Episode 1 of Silo starts with Sheriff Holston pinning his badge and stepping out. He lives in a large underground silo with many others, all unaware of their purpose and unable to safely go outside. Holston locks himself in a room, throwing his keys out, and tells his deputy he wants to go outside to see his wife. Flashbacks show Holston and his wife, Allison, trying for a baby. Allison, 38, gets her birth control removed. At work, Allison is warned for asking questions about the past and rebels. They live under strict rules that prevent them from knowing what's outside. Allison meets George, a repairman, who has a hidden drive with information from 140 years ago. It contains secrets about the silo's history. Meanwhile, the silo residents celebrate Freedom Day, remembering a rebellion that destroyed all books and computers. As Allison digs deeper, she finds a video showing birds outside the silo, challenging the idea that the outside is deadly. She shares this with Holston, revealing her birth control was never actually removed, proving authorities don't want them to have kids. She cuts herself open to show Holston the implant. Allison eventually declares she wants to go outside, a crime in the silo. She's arrested and taken outside to clean the silo's windows. Though she's confident she'll survive, she collapses outside. It's unclear if she's dead. 2 years later, Holston, grieving and suspicious, investigates further. George Wilkins has died under strange circumstances, and Juliet Nichols, a mechanic, may hold answers. Holston is determined to uncover the truth. Episode 2 starts with Holston preparing to leave the airlock and explore the outside. Free from the rules, he climbs the stairs, expecting to find the truth. As the residents watch from the cafeteria, Holston sees a beautiful landscape and believes Allison was right. He cleans the camera lens, revealing the scene to those inside. But something goes wrong. Holston starts choking, collapses, and crawls toward Allison's body before appearing to die. Juliet, furious over Holston's death, storms off to engineering, breaking a pipe in her rage. With no sheriff, the community faces disorder, and Sims steps in to maintain control. Meanwhile, rebellion brews as the law weakens. The episode flashes back 3 months to George's mysterious death. Juliet believes he was murdered, not a suicide. Before he died, George left her a letter and a Pez dispenser as clues. Holston, now suspicious, helps Juliet investigate. They discover a hidden area filled with relics from the past, including a camcorder and instructions to recover deleted files. Some of the notes are in Allison's handwriting. Holston becomes emotionally involved due to Juliet's connection to George and similarities to Allison. He advises Juliet to stay low and agrees to secretly continue investigating. His determination stems from seeing how both George and Allison sought the truth. In the present, Deputy Marnes receives Holston's final letter, naming Juliet as his recommended successor for sheriff. Juliet, frustrated and still seeking answers about George, interprets this as the sign she's been waiting for. As the episode ends, Juliet rappels down a steel beam, convinced it holds clues that will uncover the truth behind the silo and the world outside. Episode 3 starts with Juliet descending into the silo's depths, searching for answers, but finding nothing. Frustrated, she turns to drinking to cope with George's death. The next morning, still hungover, she's interrupted by an engineering emergency. She rushes to the generator room, taking control and slapping Cooper, a young engineer. In her frustration, Juliet's boss tells her to take the day off to sober up. Meanwhile, Mayor Ruth and the deputy visit Judicial but are wary of Judge Meadows. Instead, Ruth consults Juliet's father, a doctor, and learns that Juliet has always been interested in machines. Still, Ruth finds more questions than answers about Juliet. Sims, a man connected to the slums, suggests Paul Billings as sheriff, but Ruth sticks to her own judgment. She visits Martha, Juliet's mentor, who vouches for her. Ruth offers Juliet the sheriff position, but Juliet declines, saying she must fix the silo's failing generator first. Ruth gives her Holston's badge, which eventually makes Juliet reconsider. Juliet agrees to become sheriff, but only after fixing the generator. She warns the mayor that fixing it requires an 8-hour blackout, which could cause panic. Juliet and her team turn off the generator and start repairs, but a mistake almost causes a disaster. With quick thinking, Juliet manages to cool down the machine just in time, and the generator is fixed. Though the team celebrates, Juliet feels the weight of her new responsibility. Before leaving for her new role, she says goodbye to Martha. As Juliet checks Holston's badge, she finds the word truth engraved on the back. The episode ends with Mayor Ruth collapsing, convulsing, and bleeding as the deputy cries for help. Episode 4 begins with Juliet being summoned to the mayor's office, where she learns that Ruth is dead. Deputy Marnes suspects Ruth was poisoned, but believes he was the intended target. He's devastated, thinking Ruth died in his place. Bernard becomes the temporary mayor and prepares to make Juliet sheriff. When Juliet arrives at the sheriff's office, her assistant, Sandy, is uncooperative, especially towards someone from the bottom 50 levels. Juliet asks for George Wilkins's file, but Sandy refuses until Juliet is officially sworn in. Eventually, Juliet asserts her authority and gets access. Flashbacks show Juliet's troubled past, including her brother Jacob's death and her conflict with her father. She eventually joins the workers in the lower levels, learning her trade and working long hours. Her father lets her stay after seeing she's happy. In the present, Juliet is officially sworn in as sheriff. Sandy returns, claiming there's no file on George, but she gives Juliet a note Holston left behind. Juliet can't investigate further before Marnes causes trouble in the market, confronting a man named Frankie, who he suspects poisoned Ruth. Juliet opens up to Marnes about George's murder, saying she was told to wait for a sign, which she believes is linked to the sheriff's badge reading truth. They agree to help each other. Marnes will help find George's killer in exchange for solving Ruth's death. Later, Martha repairs the camcorder Juliet found, but we don't see what it reveals. Juliet investigates a rattling in the vents and finds George's file hidden there, a vital clue. The episode ends with Marnes, drunk and upset, being attacked at gunpoint in his apartment. Episode 5 begins with Juliet going through George's file, but there's nothing suspicious at first. Her search is interrupted by news of Deputy Marnes' death. Sims quickly announces that Paul Billings will be the new deputy sheriff, causing Juliet to be wary since Billings was Bernard and Sims's original pick for sheriff. Juliet finds a note on Marnes' body with Doris circled, which she believes is a clue. She takes the note and attends a funeral for Marnes and Ruth, where Bernard suggests spinning a story of them as forbidden lovers to ease tension. Back at her office, Juliet is visited by Hank, who was sent by Martha to check on her. Sandy later offers to help Juliet solve Marnes' murder, but warns that things could get messy. Juliet teams up with Billings to investigate, and after talking to Charles Martin, she tracks down Patrick Kennedy, whose wife Doris had ties to Marnes. Juliet plants evidence in Kennedy's home and arrests him. Meanwhile, Billings learns from Sims that a man named Ralph Melby is their suspect. The plan is to frame Kennedy, discredit Juliet, and return her to mechanical, but Juliet isn't fooled. She chases Doug, the man responsible for planting evidence, through the silo. After a dangerous pursuit, she stops Doug and breaks his finger. Doug reports back to Sims, but Sims pushes him off the edge of the silo to silence him. Juliet meets Judge Meadows, explaining Doug's involvement in Marnes and Ruth's deaths. Meadows, although skeptical, agrees that Doug's death will end conspiracy theories. Sandy, reassigned to be closer to her family, gives Juliet a compliment before leaving. That night, Juliet visits Martha, who warns her about the mysteries of the silo. Juliet believes she now has Bernard's trust and plans to use it to uncover the truth about George Wilkins, with the Pez dispenser as her next clue. Episode 6 begins with Juliet breaking into Trumbull's apartment, searching for clues about Marnes' murder. She's joined by Deputy Chief Billings, who finds a Pez dispenser that Juliet planted earlier. Flashbacks reveal Juliet's close relationship with George, explaining her determination to uncover the truth about him and the silo's secrets. Juliet also fixes George's watch, feeling comforted by the idea of him being happy. In the office, Juliet looks for evidence of the Pez dispenser, but is interrupted by Billings, who warns her about the serious consequences of keeping relics. She receives a note from Ellie offering to keep her updated on her investigation, but quickly shreds it. Juliet visits Judicial and meets the judge, discussing the need for a new investigation into undocumented relics. Sims agrees, but insists that Billings must accompany her. Billings cautions Juliet that Judicial will closely monitor her actions. The pair interview Regina Jackson, who recognizes George's watch. She reveals a past relationship with him and suggests he had a way with words, leaving Juliet questioning her feelings for George. Later, Bernard and Sims confront Juliet about the relic, hinting that she may have planted evidence in Trumbull's apartment. Bernard defends her, suggesting Trumbull may have taken the relic himself. Despite the tension, Bernard ultimately decides to leave the mystery unresolved, but gives Juliet a suspicious look. Billings expresses frustration over being implicated in the relic situation, wanting Juliet's trust as he has a family to protect. That night, Juliet reflects on George's illegal questions and begins to doubt everything he told her. She radios Martha, who urges her to understand the importance of her situation. Juliet returns to Regina, who warns her that Judicial asks easy questions, but the real threats come at night. Regina, scared, reveals that she gave up names of relic dealers to protect her family, including George's name. Regina mentions a hard drive she exchanged for a relic. Juliet hurriedly opens a package at home to find a book titled The Amazing Adventures of Georgia, filled with incredible sights and signed by many previous owners. As the episode ends, someone in a control room watches Juliet and instructs his partner to wake him up to see what's happening. Episode 7 begins with Gloria on the beach, holding a shell and reminiscing about family. She suddenly finds herself in her bedroom, where a nurse injects her with a sedative, leaving her disoriented as she murmurs, "I have to find them." Meanwhile, Juliet discovers names in George's book, including Gloria's. She is being monitored, but she grabs Gloria's file and heads to her office. There, she learns that Gloria is in long-term care. Paul Billings informs Juliet that the mayor wants to meet, but she brushes it off, raising Billings' concerns amid the silo's instability. Juliet visits long-term care to take Gloria for a walk, but Judge Meadows has ordered her to stay put. While waiting for the judge, a violent fight breaks out in the silo, and Billings struggles to maintain order without Juliet. After the chaos, Billings confronts Juliet about her absence and encourages her to meet the mayor. He reveals that Meadows lives on level 15, giving Juliet a way to reach her. The next day, Juliet meets the mayor, who has received threats from Meadows about potentially hijacking the silo's servers. Juliet confronts Meadows about Gloria, but the judge refuses to lift the order, stating that they won't allow it. Realizing Meadows is part of a larger control system, Juliet leaves empty-handed. Seeking answers, Juliet turns to her father for help in getting Gloria out and detoxing her. He reluctantly agrees. They manage to take Gloria to a secure area where they can flush the drugs from her system. When Gloria wakes, she recognizes Juliet's father as part of the group that experimented on her. Juliet shares George's book, revealing that he was a flamekeeper, a rebel against the silo. After Gloria is returned to long-term care, Juliet confronts her father about his actions regarding fertility control. Before leaving, she allows Gloria to look at the beach one last time. Gloria hints at something in the vents, leading Juliet to discover the missing hard drive. Just as the raiders burst in, the episode ends. Episode 8 opens in the past, with Hannah meeting Mosley in the cornfields, alongside a young Juliet. They trade a box containing a rabbit, which Hannah says won't be eaten as it's part of an experiment. In the present, Juliet hides in the nursery, where Sims interrogates Gloria about the opened vents. He wants information on the contents of a bag, but leaves Gloria medicated and under surveillance while he searches for Juliet. Juliet tries to access the hard drive, but is unsuccessful and falls asleep on the floor. She's awakened by an alert from Billings, only to find guards searching the office for unregistered relics. This search reminds Juliet of her childhood, when her father convinced Hannah to hand over a relic that was ultimately destroyed. This incident creates distrust between Juliet and Pete, who insists he never informed the authorities about Hannah. Juliet suspects Sims is the real power behind the judge and decides to play their game by teaming up with Billings. They manage to arrest Sims for conducting an illegal search, but he warns Juliet that she will regret her actions. Left alone in judicial, Juliet searches through files and discovers one on her mother, Hannah. She confronts Pete about what happened to her mother. He admits his regrets over not stopping her from crossing lines and claims that Hannah grew bolder after losing Juliet's brother. Juliet realizes the mirrors have hidden cameras, confirming Pete's innocence regarding Hannah. Maintenance arrives to check the vents, prompting Juliet to show Pete the hard drive. She plans to get it to Martha, who can help decrypt it. However, security checks complicate her efforts. Billings struggles with tremors, and Martha grows worried when Juliet is late. Sims remains imprisoned, with officers unsure of whom to follow. Juliet recruits Lucas, but he refuses to help for fear of compromising his mother. As Judicial arrives to take Juliet, she stalls during a bag check, allowing Bernard to intervene and vouch for her. They head to the fields, where Bernard reveals he's the real mastermind, not Sims. As guards close in, Juliet pleads with Billings, who hesitates. When Sims attacks her, she seizes the moment, escaping by jumping over the stairwell edge. Episode 9 begins with Juliet falling down the stairs, but landing on a pathway leading to another area of the silo. Sims suspects Paul Billings has helped her escape and confronts him. Meanwhile, Bernard reprimands Sims for losing Juliet and emphasizes the urgency of the situation. Paul, feeling the weight of his hidden illness, contemplates admitting his syndrome to return to Judicial. He resolves to catch Juliet instead. Sims sends raiders to search for her, personally visiting Pete, who pretends to know nothing. Unbeknownst to them, Juliet has taken refuge in Sims's apartment. She holds his partner at gunpoint, handcuffing her before accessing the hard drive. As the file downloads, Paul arrives at Juliet's apartment, currently being ransacked by raiders. Without clearance, he sneaks in after they leave and discovers a hidden copy of the Amazing Adventures book, shaking as he flips through its pages. Bernard interrogates Lucas, who reveals a number, leading to his arrest. Meanwhile, Juliet successfully hacks into the hard drive, using the code LIBRARY, and starts sifting through the files. Sims and Bernard track the hard drive to Sims's apartment. Robert's partner escapes her cuffs and warns Juliet to flee before it's too late, which she does. Juliet evades security with Patrick's help, accessing his apartment. Another IT technician reroutes the drive's signal to mask its location. Juliet discovers a revealing video from George Wilkins, who confesses he transferred to mechanical to find a guide, Juliet. He also mentions a 15-foot door of metal she needs to locate. Back at home, Paul burns the book he found, but keeps a folded page as a reminder. As he contemplates his next move, Juliet discovers a file titled Jane Carmody Cleaning. The video footage reveals the outside world, raising questions about the truth. The tension builds as viewers await the series finale. The final episode begins with Juliet watching a video showing the outside world and realizing they must broadcast this information throughout the silo. They need to amplify the signal from floor 126, but security is actively searching for her. To evade detection, the trio descends through the trash chute, while raiders focus on floor 22. Sims is frustrated when Deputy Sheriff Paul Billings lies about not finding anything suspicious. The trio reaches floor 126, where Juliet connects the hard drive to the monitors, showing the beautiful outside scenery. Bernard quickly reboots the server to stop the broadcast. As Bernard orders his team to forget what they've seen, raiders attempt to flush Juliet out by dropping heavy debris. Forced to let go, she lands in mechanical, where she's saved just in time. Soon after, Judicial arrives, and Bernard apprehends Juliet, destroying the hard drive. He offers her a deal, waive her right to a hearing, and agree to go outside to clean, sparing her friends from punishment. She accepts, eager to learn what happened to George. Meanwhile, Martha steps out of her workshop for the first time in 25 years, driven by her connection to Juliet. In security, Juliet watches footage of George jumping to avoid torture, shocking the judicial officer Doug. Later, Juliet is fitted for a cleaning suit while Lucas is exiled to the mines for 10 years instead of being sent outside. Martha delivers food to Juliet in her holding cell, slipping her a note revealing the truth. When the moment arrives for Juliet to go outside, she discovers the vibrant world is a pre-recorded video. Instead of cleaning, she walks away and uncovers the reality beyond the hologram, a wasteland. She realizes their silo is one of many, suggesting that they are in the 18th silo of a larger system.